Finding the perfect house is challenging under any circumstances, but especially so in today's crazy housing market. I know because I've been navigating it myself. Today, I'm going to be sharing more about the behind the scenes of our journey to find a house in this market, as well as our thought process that we're going through as we've been making the decisions about what we want to do next. And I'm going to share some tips to help you if you're in the process of buying a house, whether it's a crazy market or not. Hi, I'm Scarlett Cochran, and this is One Big Happy Life, where we help you find balance, build wealth, and live happy. Everything that you need to create the life that you want. Today, we're going to be talking about buying a house, especially in this crazy real estate market that we're in right now. But before we do, I wanted to let you know that this Wednesday, I'm going to be hosting a live information session for my business mastermind, the Ascend Mastermind. So Ascend is for business owners who are already seeing success in their business and are ready to take their business to the six-figure and multiple six-figure level and really value mentorship and community to help them shorten the path to success. So if that's you, if you are an online business owner, if you're a coach, a course creator, and a thought leader, an expert, someone that helps people truly transform their lives, then Ascend could be the perfect fit for you. And so I'd love for you to come to the information session to see if it would be a great fit. You can head over to onebighappylife.com/mastermind to learn more and save your seat for the information session. Now, if you've been following our homeownership journey, you know that Joseph and I entered into a build contract in June of 2021 to build our dream house in Richmond, Virginia. Well, as we shared on Instagram, in February of 2022, so at that point, 7-8 months into the process, after already selling our own home back in August of 2021, our builder decided to back out of the contract. And I'm going to be sharing more details about exactly what happened in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for that. But for now, I want to talk about our decision, like what came next when we realized that here we are in February of 2022 or March of 2022 with no place to live, and even the neighborhood where we were looking to build, there weren't even that many lots left. And also recognizing that we're still in a hot housing market. It was hot last June when we decided to build and when we sold our own house, and things have seemed to only escalate since then. So Joseph and I, the first thing that we did was we just asked ourselves again what we wanted. Like, is this the decision that we had made to build in Richmond, Virginia? Is that still something that we wanted to do? So was that still a top priority for us? And we realized that we actually didn't really want to live in this city. We moved here without ever having lived here. And we moved here for the idea of the neighborhood and being able to build our dream home custom from scratch. And once that was no longer an option, then we got to sort of decide again, like reevaluate our priorities and really choose again for ourselves what we wanted next. And so we started thinking about what our priorities were. And for us, owning a home is definitely a priority. We like the space, we love to do DIYs, and we just love to have a space that is just our own. And we still, if at all possible, want to have a house where we can do a lot of the things that we like to do in our home. So a place where we can entertain and have friends over, a place with a big yard, a place where we could maybe have a home gym and work out. So those were still our priorities. It's just the location wasn't as much a priority for us anymore. And so we expanded our search all across the country with one new criteria being added in, which is that we realized that we didn't like having to drive a long way in order to be able to go out to eat or to go to Costco, one of our favorite places to shop. And so we started looking for places that had, great schools, a great city, a great airport. Because another thing we discovered was that Richmond we would have to connect basically everywhere. So when I would travel, it would take me a full day to go anywhere I was going, basically, because it was always a connecting flight. So we started looking for great hub airports as well. And so then we narrowed our search down to a couple of cities, one of them being Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where we ended up going under contract to buy a house. So then we started getting familiar with the market. And again, this is just since March, and now it's the end of April. So all of this happened in the span of less than 2 months. So we started looking at what was available, which areas of Charlotte we wanted to check out, what things cost. And we quickly realized that the budget that would get us our dream house in Richmond, Virginia would not come anywhere near where we need our dream house and what our dream house looks like in Charlotte. So we then had to make a decision. Did we want to go to the top of our budget and be in a house that wasn't what we wanted, and then perhaps being crunched with how much we would be able to change that house? Or did we want to reduce our budget, reduce our expectations for our different priorities so that we would be able to comfortably afford the house? And yes, we'd have to make trade-offs, but we would have a budget cushion where we'd be able to change our house over time and also save up money so that if we wanted to upgrade to the dream houses that were currently out of our budget, that we could do that in the next 3 or 4 years. And so ultimately we decided to go with the second option. So instead of buying the most that we could afford, we opted to drop our budget to the tune of several $100,000 and instead get a house that very comfortably fit within our budget. So then we started doing the house hunting. And so there are a couple of lessons and takeaways baked into even just that decision-making process that I just told you about that Joseph and I went through. The first is allowing yourself time to get to the place that you want to go, even if you were just almost there, right? We were just almost there. We were almost there at being able to afford our dream house, but then our priorities changed. And so when our priorities changed, so did the cost of what we wanted. And so being comfortable with that and recognizing that, yes, it might be not right now. So you might not be able to get the thing that you were initially hoping to get right at this moment, but you can then create a new plan where you decide what trade-offs you're comfortable with now, and then you set that new goal for the future, which is exactly what we've done. And of course, in order to do that, you have to really know what your priorities are. So what do you care about? What matters to you when it comes to buying your home? What trade-offs are you willing to make in the short term and the long term? And really considering those things and also reevaluating as you get new information. Now, normally the market is not changing so rapidly that you have to make these decisions quickly, but we are in a time where the housing stock, the available housing is really low, and there are a lot of people out there looking for houses. And so you do have to make decisions quickly, right? Whether that decision is to buy a house or not buy a house, because the decision, staying in indecision about what you're going to do is also still a decision. It's the decision to not buy a house. You just aren't choosing it on purpose. It's just happening by default because you haven't decided one way or another, and not having the house is the default that you're currently in. So really understanding what your priorities are so that you can make trade-offs. And Joseph and I really had to sit down and hammer out. Like, we had our big wish list for the things that we wanted. We knew that we wanted at least 4 bedrooms. We wanted a downstairs master. We wanted a big backyard with ideally a really private backyard. So a wooded backyard where we didn't have any neighbors looking into our yard. We wanted excellent schools. We wanted diverse schools. And so we also wanted proximity to plenty of restaurants, easy access to the city, easy access to the airport, a great airport. So we had this long list of things that we wanted, and then there's the price, right? So then how much do all of those things cost? And then finally, there is the environment in which we're trying to buy a house, which is this current real estate market where, again, there are so few houses. Houses go extremely quickly, like within days of going on the market. Some houses don't ever even hit the market. They go under contract before they even have a chance to hit the market. And then the concessions that buyers are having to make to sellers in order to win a contract are much higher than I personally have ever seen. And I bought my first house back in, what year was it? 2002. So I've been a homeowner off and on for the past 20 years. And this market is something that I've never seen before. Even though I have been in an extreme buyer's market as a buyer back in 2002 when I bought my first house, I sold it 9 months later in 2003 without it ever hitting the market. And I made a $15,000 profit off of a house that only cost $100,000. So to make that level of profit over just 9 months of home ownership, but there was a repair contingency. So they did an inspection and they asked for repairs. And so I did pay for repairs as the seller. And that I was still an extreme seller's market. And this is a whole different situation. And so that the environment in which you're operating in has a huge impact on your priorities and what you can and can't fit within your budget. Now, having said that, even though the market is crazy right now, Joseph and I have been very careful to not make rash decisions because of the frenzy, right? Not getting caught up in the frenzy and the flurry and things moving quickly, really trusting that the right house, if it's for us, will also come with the right timing. So that meant that we were patient. We didn't rush to just put in offers on any house. We made plans. So we had time, first and foremost, because we started looking in March and our lease here in Virginia continues through August. So we knew that we had at least until July to find a house and then close by the end of August so that we wouldn't have to extend our lease here. But we also considered other options. What would it look like if we rented for 3 months or 6 months, moved down there, rented for 3 months or 6 months, and then continued to search for a house, maybe at a time that's where fewer people are looking because more kids will be in school? What would it look like if we rented for a whole year and took our time? And so we considered many options, which allowed us to stay calm and level-headed, even in the midst of what is going on in the market around us, even in the midst of all the hype and the flurry and the frenzy that is this rapidly moving real estate market that we're in. And the reason we were able to do that, lessons learned here, is a commitment to making calm, non-rushed decisions, like really thinking through the decisions and taking the time that we need, even in a fast-moving environment, because we would rather make a decision slowly and think it through and feel comfortable with the decision than rush to make a decision and then feel frustrated because we didn't take the time to think things through. The other lesson here is the idea of being flexible in how you accomplish things. So giving ourselves the time to buy a house by August, but also exploring the option of, and maybe we don't find a house by August. Because if we're like, well, we got to find a house by end of July, again, that puts us in this position where we have no choice but to pick from whatever options and do whatever it takes to be able to move into a house by the end of August. And so by looking into, well, what other options, let's just say we don't find a house by July and we can't close by August. What else could we do to make this move happen? What would we want this to look like? So really thinking about that in advance allowed us to have some amount of peace of mind. So we spent about 7 weeks house hunting. We took one trip down to Charlotte at the end of March, and then our realtor did a lot of virtual tours with us over the following weeks. So we actually were able to get pretty familiar with the market, the houses that were coming on, how much those houses were costing, how much over asking price they were going, because we would see houses close. And so we got so familiar with the prices that when a couple of houses came on that we were like, oh, those could be great houses and the prices were right, we knew that we wanted to just head down there, see all of the houses, and then hopefully make an offer on one of them because they all checked enough of our boxes and we were familiar enough with the types of houses, the housing inventory that was coming on board, that we felt pretty confident that the odds of finding a house that was even more perfect was on the lower side, and that we were comfortable making that trade-off. So finding a house that checked off almost all of the boxes and being able to put an offer in on it as soon as possible. So if you're following us on Instagram, then you watched the whole saga this past weekend. And if you're not, then you should, because we'll be sharing even more details over the next coming weeks as we work towards actually now getting this deal to close so that we own the house. So follow us over on Instagram at One Big Happy Life. All of the houses that we wanted to see came on the market Friday morning, and we had all of the tours scheduled. So Friday, we saw 4 of the houses, and then we had 3 tours scheduled on Saturday. But by Friday afternoon, we knew that one of the houses was going to be the house because it checked all, like basically every box except for 1 or 2. So we went ahead and put an offer in on that one just straight away. In the meantime, one of the houses we were going to see the next day was taken off the market. So it went under contract. So we continued to view houses on Saturday. And then as we were heading to the last house, we got word from our realtor that we won the offer, which was so exciting because in this market, you're competing against several other offers. And so this was our first offer that we put in. And we almost, even though we put in a really strong offer, we almost didn't even expect to win it because it would just feel like winning the lottery to just get our first offer accepted right out of the gate. But that's exactly what happened. And we were incredibly thrilled. And so I wanted to share some of the things that contributed to us winning that offer. The first is that we were so far below our budget that we were able to stretch in other areas of the contract that I would not normally have considered, but that are kind of required in this market in hot areas. So we waived all contingencies. So that means we waived the appraisal and we waived the inspection. And in order to do that, we had to feel comfortable that if the house didn't appraise, that we would be willing to put in the cash to make up the difference. And the reason we were able to do that is because we were so far below our maximum housing budget that we felt comfortable kicking in the cash both now and later, if something were to happen to where housing prices were to fall and the house would not be able to appreciate in the future. We just imagined how far do we think it might drop? And so what would we need to do to be in a financial position so that if we wanted to move in 2 or 3 or 4 years and the house wasn't appraising, that we would have the money to kick in then too. So it's so important in this market to think of not just what you're doing to get the house now, but what it might mean if the market doesn't continue to go this way. And in fact, if it does happen to turn into some kind of housing bubble where prices implode and stay down for a long period of time, what's that going to mean for you financially? We also had to be prepared to make any repairs on the house ourselves. So we're basically taking the house as is, which also helps, again, being so far below our budget. So we're prepared if the house needs a new roof, if it needs a new HVAC, if it needs new windows, if it needs, termite remediation, that we have the financial resources to be able to fix those things over the course of several years. And so because of that, we were able to put in a really strong offer that won us the house. And so that has been our experience, our thought process in a nutshell, and really great lessons for you to take away and use it as you're making your own decisions, whether or not you're buying a house or selling a house in this market, but really just a great way of thinking about how you make financial decisions, how you make values-based financial decisions, how you set priorities, how you think about both like the short-term and longer-term consequences of the decisions that you make, how you stay financially flexible and use your money to create the results that you want in your life, regardless of what is going on in the world around you. So to answer the question that you probably came here thinking, well, is now a good time to buy a house? Well, you have to decide, is now a good time to buy a house for you? Because it's a highly personal decision and it really depends on what your priorities are. All right, that's it for today. Remember, if you are interested in learning more about my Ascend Business Mastermind, head on over to onebighappylife.com/ascend. The information session is this Wednesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I don't want you to miss it. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.